Good evening, everyone. Today I want to speak on a subject that often remains unspoken in the shadows of masculinity. For generations, men have been conditioned to believe that emotions are signs of fragility and that showing love is somehow incompatible with being strong. Society has constructed an image of masculinity that often discourages emotional expression, pushing men toward emotional suppression instead. In this warped view, strength is associated with silence, emotional detachment and control, while love is painted as soft, vulnerable, and even dangerous. This false narrative robs men of the opportunity to experience the full richness of human connection. Love, when embraced fully, does not make a man weak. It reveals his inner power in its truest form. True love requires a level of bravery that far exceeds the courage needed to lift heavy burdens or face external battles. It calls for inner strength, the kind that allows a man to open his heart without knowing how he will be received. It takes boldness to commit deeply, to give without the guarantee of receiving, and to invest emotionally in something beyond himself. Men who love genuinely are not afraid of losing control. They're willing to risk being hurt because they recognize the value of connection and emotional truth. In this willingness to feel, they demonstrate a strength far greater than that which is built on pride or ego. Love challenges men to be responsible and selfless, to prioritize someone else's well-being above their own comfort. It takes tremendous emotional resilience to walk beside someone in their struggles, to support them without always having the answers, and to remain steady in seasons of uncertainty. This kind of emotional labor is often unseen and uncelebrated, yet it requires more strength than traditional expressions of toughness. A man who is driven by love becomes a pillar for those around him, not because he is invulnerable, but because he is willing to carry emotional weight with grace and patience. When a man learns to love without reservation, he taps into a strength that is rooted in purpose and anchored in sincerity. It turns a man from a lone warrior into a devoted protector, from a distant figure into a present and life-giving partner. So ye comforting to the Fidean. To love deeply is to risk deeply, and that risk demands immense courage. Voice erected by past wounds, societal expectations, or emotional pain. Voice erected by passions or emotional insecurities, or without apologies to repress, or emotional insecurities, or at their prevail crashes. With reps, or unlike physical strength, which can often be displayed for admiration, emotional courage is quiet, internal, and often unnoticed. Yet it is perhaps the most powerful form of bravery a man can possess. Men are frequently taught to fear vulnerability, to avoid situations where they may feel exposed or emotionally dependent. But love cannot thrive without vulnerability. To be in love is to stand unprotected in front of another, trusting that your heart will be held with care. This act of trust is not a sign of foolishness. It is a declaration of emotional confidence. Courage in love means facing the possibility of pain and still choosing to give. It means not running away when things become difficult. Not running behind reality, not the handle, realisco. The like you have found, the cattle scant of living. Creation is not. Courage in love is also about perseverance. It takes strength to stay committed when love is tested by time, distance, hardship, or misunderstanding. It's easy to walk away when feelings fade or when situations grow uncomfortable, but it takes a courageous heart to stay, to communicate, to fight for the connection. This kind of courage is not about domination or control. It's about choosing to stay emotionally available even when it hurts. It's about showing up again and again, not just when love is easy, but especially when love demands something deeper, something sacrificial. Furthermore, courage in love involves self-discovery. As a man loves another deeply, he must also confront parts of himself that he may have ignored or denied. In learning to love, he often discovers unresolved fears, hidden insecurities, or longings he never knew existed. Facing these inner truths can be unsettling, but doing so is an act of bravery that leads to personal transformation. It is in this process of confronting his inner world that a man becomes more whole, more human, and more capable of loving well. In the end, it is not the absence of fear that makes love courageous. It is the choice to love in spite of fear. Love, when it is genuine and rooted in truth, has the unique power to transform a man from the inside out. It serves as a mirror, reflecting not only his strengths, but also his flaws, weaknesses, and areas that need growth. A man who embraces love finds himself being reshaped, not by force, but by inspiration. He begins to consider how his actions, words, and choices affect the one he loves. This process of introspection is not always easy. In fact, it often challenges his pride and exposes the areas where change is needed. Yet it is precisely this challenge that refines his character, turning him into a more thoughtful, patient, and selfless individual. In love, a man learns that strength is not about having control, but about yielding when necessary. He begins to recognize the value of compromise, listening, and empathy. These are not traits that come naturally to everyone, especially in a culture that often rewards dominance and discourages emotional intelligence. But love softens the rough edges, inviting a man to consider perspectives other than his own. He reshapes the way he views conflict, not as a battle to be won, but as an opportunity to understand and to build something stronger together. Through this, he gains wisdom, humility, and emotional depth that would be difficult to develop in isolation. Moreover, love teaches accountability. A man in love cannot hide behind excuses or pretend that his actions don't have consequences. Love demands honesty and consistency. It pushes him to become a man of his word, someone who doesn't just speak promises but lives them out through his behavior. This shift in character is not driven by guilt or obligation, but by a genuine desire to honor the one he loves. While he invests in the relationship, he also invests in his own growth. He learns to take responsibility for his choices, to apologize when he is wrong, and to make changes that reflect his commitment. As this transformation unfolds, the man becomes not only a better partner, but a better person overall. Love doesn't just impact how he treats the one he loves. It influences how he engages with the world. He becomes more compassionate, more understanding, and more attuned to the needs of others. He may find himself more generous, more patient with strangers, and more intentional in his relationships beyond the romantic. In this way, love acts as a refining fire, not destroying who he is, but purifying and enhancing it. It shapes his identity, not by erasing his masculinity, but by enriching it with virtues that bring depth, integrity, and grace to his life. For centuries, society has projected a narrow image of masculinity, one that glorifies toughness, emotional suppression, and unyielding independence. Men are often told both subtly and overtly that they must hide their feelings, never cry, and avoid expressing affection too freely. These stereotypes create emotional prisons, trapping men in roles that disconnect them from their own humanity. However, when a man truly falls in love, these walls begin to crumble. Love does not respect the boundaries set by cultural expectations. It challenges a man to be real, to be vulnerable, and to embrace parts of himself that he may have been told to ignore or deny. A man in love quickly learns that the old rules no longer apply. Who thinks he once used to confrontation between him and the one he cares for. Love courses a confrontation between what the world says a man should be and what love reveals a man should be. Love is clear between him and a man. Many believe the reasons: it encourages the release of outdated ideas and invites him into a fuller expression of masculinity, one that includes empathy, emotional expression, and tenderness. Through love, he discovers that he doesn't have to choose between being strong and being soft. He can be both. Love also exposes the limitations of performative masculinity. It reveals that being emotionally detached is not a sign of strength, but often a shield born of fear. As a man allows himself to love and be loved, he finds that emotional openness does not weaken him, it enhances him. He becomes more present, more engaged, and more alive. The stereotypes that once dictated his behavior start to feel hollow compared to the richness of emotional intimacy. Love offers a new framework where strength is measured by a man's willingness to feel, to serve, and to show up fully, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. Love offers a new framework for relationship, love. By breaking these societal molds, love also paves the way for broader change. When men begin to reject the false definitions of masculinity and instead embrace emotional wholeness, they set new examples for others. They become fathers who nurture, husbands who communicate, and friends who truly care. Their lives become silent protests against the culture of emotional repression, showing the world that real men love deeply and feel deeply. This revolution begins quietly, within the heart of a man who chooses love over pride, connection over control. And in doing so, he redefines not only himself, but the meaning of manhood itself. Love, when it truly takes root in a man's heart, doesn't just enhance his emotions, it redirects his entire life's path. Many men spend years searching for purpose, driven by ambition, success, or recognition. Yet, when a man experiences deep, transformative love, something inside him shifts. Suddenly, life is no longer just about personal achievement or self-fulfillment. A love introduces a new sense of meaning, one that is rooted in connection, responsibility, and legacy. It gives him a reason to wake up with intention and to live not just for himself, but for someone or something greater than himself. This deepened sense of purpose manifests in the choices he begins to make. He starts thinking not just about what he wants, but about how his actions will affect the one he loves. The pursuit of money, success, or status becomes secondary to the desire to provide, to support, and to grow a life filled with meaning. Love transforms his journey from a solo mission into a shared adventure with deeper roots and greater significance. Moreover, love anchors a man during times of uncertainty or adversity, When challenges arise, whether in career, health, or personal struggles, it is love that reminds him of what truly matters. It keeps him grounded when life feels chaotic and provides clarity when decisions become difficult. This kind of grounding gives him a stable foundation from which he can operate with confidence. It's not that problems disappear, but that his response to them becomes more mature and centered. The presence of love infuses his life with direction and steadiness, making him less reactive and more intentional. As he grows within love, he also begins to consider the long-term impact of his life. His thoughts stretch beyond temporary pleasures or achievements and turn toward legacy. He asks himself, what kind of partner do I want to be remembered as? What kind of example am I setting? What kind of life am I building? These questions don't weigh him down, they elevate him. Love in this way is not a distraction from purpose. It is the very force that defines and refines it. It shapes his values, motivates his actions, and creates a future not based on ego, but on enduring connection and meaningful contribution. In a world obsessed with performance and flawless appearances, many men grow up believing that they must be perfect in order to be worthy of love. They strive to be the strongest, the smartest, the most successful, thinking that love is something to be earned through perfection. But real love doesn't demand that a man have it all together. It simply requires that he show up genuinely, honestly, and consistently. Love is not impressed by titles or accomplishments. It is drawn to presence, the quiet strength of a man who chooses to be emotionally available, even in his imperfections. Being present means more than just physically being there. It is about engagement, listening with intention, speaking with honesty, and sharing one's heart without fear of being misunderstood. It means setting aside distractions to invest fully in the moment and the person in front of him. This kind of presence creates emotional safety and builds trust over time. When a man offers his undivided attention, even without having all the answers, he offers something far more valuable than perfection. He offers connection. Love doesn't expect him to always say the right things, but it does require him to be real, open, and fully there. Perfection, by contrast, often leads to emotional distance. When a man is overly concerned with appearing flawless, he may avoid vulnerability and mask his struggles. This creates barriers, not intimacy. But when he embraces his humanity and is willing to share his doubts, fears, and failures, he becomes more relatable and more trustworthy. Love flourishes in that kind of authenticity. His presence, even when he is unsure or flawed, sends the message, I'm here, I care, and I choose you despite my imperfections. That consistent choice is the foundation of lasting love and partnership. Furthermore, love allows room for growth. It understands that presence includes showing up in the process, not just when things are easy, but when the journey is messy and uncertain. It gives a man the space to evolve without the pressure of being perfect from the start. This kind of love liberates him from performance-based relationships and welcomes him into a space where grace, patience, and mutual growth thrive. In this way, his value is not tied to perfection, but to his willingness to keep showing up
Stop ka nga pala.
Keep loving with his whole heart. Many men, whether they realize it or not, approach love with a sense of caution, rooted in fear. Fear of rejection, fear of being hurt, fear of losing control. They may hesitate to fully open their hearts because they've been taught that love makes them vulnerable. And vulnerability is something to be avoided. But true love, genuine, grounded love, is not a prison or a threat to freedom. On the contrary, it is the very thing that liberates a man from the chains of isolation, pride, and emotional detachment. Love gives him permission to be fully himself without needing to hide or protect parts of who he is. When a man embraces love fully, he discovers that freedom is not found in avoiding emotional risk, but in embracing it with courage and honesty. This kind of freedom doesn't mean doing whatever he wants without consequences. It means living without the fear of being unloved for his imperfections. Love removes the mask, dismantles the fear of being not enough, and invites him to step into a relationship where he is seen, known, and still accepted. In this space, a man doesn't feel restrained or controlled. He feels released to feel deeply, speak openly, and dream boldly. Love also liberates a man from the exhausting cycle of proving himself. In the arms of true love, he no longer needs to seek validation from external achievements or constant performance. Instead, he is valued simply for who he is. That sense of acceptance fosters peace and confidence, two qualities that are rarely found in fear-crined relationships. Rather than walking on eggshells or holding back emotions, love enables him to live from a place of authenticity and wholeness. It allows him to love not with caution, but with abandon, because he knows he is safe. Moreover, when fear no longer rules the heart, love begins to expand every part of a man's life. He becomes more generous, more open to growth, and more willing to invest deeply in others. Relationships stop being transactions or power struggles and instead become spaces of mutual empowerment. He finds that love doesn't trap him. It elevates him. It frees him to be tender without shame, strong without aggression, and committed without resentment. In this freedom, love becomes not just a feeling, but a way of life, a guiding force that opens the door to emotional freedom, personal integrity, and meaningful connection. In the end, love is not a weight that burdens a man, it is the wind that lifts him higher. It does not take away his strength, it reveals its deepest form. When a man dares to love fully, without fear or pride, he becomes more than just a provider or protector. He becomes a partner, a nurturer, and a vessel of purpose. Love refines him, expands him, and frees him to live a life of depth and meaning. So let us celebrate the man who loves boldly, who shows up consistently, and who leads not just with his strength, but with his heart. Because a man in love is a man truly alive.